Look into this dark, unforgiving glass eye, the mesh of the microphone. Tell it your deepest thoughts, hopes, fears, and desires. We will take these emotions, turn them, and feed them back to you, for we have goals, goals that your feelings will assist. This is how we rule, from the shadows, playing your emotions like puppet strings. We lead you to destinations that we have prepared, and you willingly oblige, thinking these decisions to be your own. When you do as we wish, we reward you, and when you go against us, we punish you. In a million subtle ways, we influence your supposedly free choice. By this method, we rule over a population convinced that they are the masters of their own destiny. Welcome to the Empire of Lies.
Yes, hello and welcome back to the Empire of Lies. Good evening, everyone. We are back in the saddle after my week off for the picnic event last week, which went great, by the way. But I recommended that if you want to know more about that, you listen to the beginning of this Monday's Discordant Dragons or check out the video that I posted about it. Everything was great. Thank you for those who financially supported. Speaking of financial support, I have an interesting announcement to make. Just recently, I was contacted by David, the president of the Foundation for White Wellbeing, that decided to grant us, as one of the first granted content producers for the White Wellbeing community. Chris and I received a $1,000 shared grant. Thank you very much. From the White Wellbeing Foundation as this stream's first official sponsor. Thank you so much. And I talked to the president and anyone who grants such a nice gift, because $1,000 is a lot to me and Chris. We don't make much money. So me and Chris are going to split that. That's 500 USD a piece. Thank you to all of you who donate to the White Wellbeing Foundation and all of that. Thank you to David for putting the foundation together and going through all of the legal hard work. And thank you for those of you who made that choice to decide to grant us that. As a thank you, I talked to David and we came up with a fun thing for me to do. To show for the rest of 2024, since we got their 2024 Content Creator Award, one of that they gave. I know that Jason Kuna, Brant Danger, and some other ones got the grant as well. I'm going to do a fun little blurb for like a few seconds at the beginning of these streams. I'm going to create a fun little video that's going to be like PBS. It's going to be like this. This presentation is what is it? How'd the PBS thing go? Brought to you by viewers like you and paid in part by
This show is brought to you by viewers like you and paid in part by the White Wellbeing Foundation. Yeah.
So I'm going to use the beautiful banner that David put together for the White Wellbeing Foundation, and I'm going to read out something like that to have as a fun little tag at the beginning of our streams for 2024. And assuming we win that award again next year, I'll do the same next year too. So that's awesome. I have never had an official long-term sponsor for any of the streams that I've done. And this is cool. It's the first time this has happened. So thank you to David and the White Wellbeing people that donate to the White Wellbeing Foundation out in, I think it's based out of California, but I know David was a Californian if he's not still. So thank you to all of you who've put all that together and done the hard work. And thank you for choosing to financially support me and Chris in the work we do, because we really do want to bring constructive, healthy ideas to the table that will not just help the West, but the people of the West, white people, the European race. Like, we really want us to heal and to be stronger and better and take control of our countries, our communities, etc. And thank you for the White Wellbeing Foundation for, just giving us that support. That means a lot. Thank you. So
yeah, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it.
So next week I'll have that fun little intro created, and that will go on the beginning of our streams, because that sounds like fun to me, and it's fun to be officially sponsored by something. I've never had that before. That's cool. So with that being said, tonight we have an interesting topic, and Chris and I chose this because we had a long conversation, which we won't get into. But there are things going on in our culture today that remind both of us of the cargo cult phenomenon. And the piece that I have prepared tonight might ruffle a few feathers, but those feathers need to be ruffled. And I want you to think heavily about what I say at the end of the stream if you are one of the ones who gets offended. But we'll get into that later. We have a lot of ground to cover for the stream. So, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. So why don't you go ahead and preface the stream with anything you'd like to preface it with, and then we'll get started on your presentation about cargo cult syndrome.
So, essentially the idea that I'm trying to get at here is a sort of variation of the idea of the skin suit that has been sort of like widely portrayed, the idea of taking something, scooping out its insides and then parading around in it. Except after the shell has been vacated, you still get a lot of people essentially worshipping the shell, trying to reanimate a thing that has passed, that has long passed in many cases, because the conditions that brought that idea, that sort of political ideology or that sort of worldview around have since long departed. And it reminded me, I'll just go into my presentation. It reminds me of the cargo cult. Wait, let's in Smolin, and I'll stick up that cool picture that I've got. Okay, right. Just let me.
There we go. I like this one. This one's funny.
Yeah, it's an amazing picture. So the cargo cults were a curious phenomenon that arose in Melanesia in the South Pacific after the end of World War II. During the war, the Americans made bases on these Melanesian islands and gave out food and gifts to the natives. After they left, some of these island societies lapsed into a strange kind of worship where they would build things like wooden radar masts or traffic control towers and runways, believing that it would make the metal birds return with the cargo, which was seen as a sort of utopian horn of plenty, a world where no one would have to work or suffer because their messiah, John from, presumably a corruption of Americans saying, "Hi, I'm John from America," would return with the cargo. Now, hang on, just let me get the next image. An example of a cargo cult ritual observed circa 2022. On a tropical island in the Southwest Pacific, a few dozen men gather in the rainforest. They are wearing long trousers, but no shirt or shoes. Red paint marks, the initials USA on their bare chests. Carrying thick bamboo poles painted with red stripes, the men greet each other cordially and muck around for a while. Suddenly, the toll of a bell abruptly changes the mood. Everyone stands upright, looking solemn and purposeful. A frail-looking older man in a worn-out military jacket, several sizes too large, shouts something in Bislama, and the men get in formation. They place their bamboo poles on their shoulders like rifles, and at the next command, begin marching in lockstep through the jungle. Their destination is a clearing in the forest that looks like a landing strip, but the only airplane present is a full-size wooden replica of a light aircraft. On one side of the strip lies a control tower made of bamboo. On the other sits a satellite dish built of mud and straw. Undeterred by the apparent lack of any actual aviation technology, some of the men light torches and place them alongside the runway. Others use flags to wave landing signals. Everybody raises their gaze to the sky in anticipation. They wait, but the planes never come. This story has always fascinated me because it embodies something that I see more and more in the modern West, where people mistake the signifier or symbol of a thing for the thing itself. A very good example of this would be a fake degree, where the owner mistakenly believes that it is the piece of paper with the fancy words that bestows the knowledge, rather than the true case of affairs, where the piece of paper symbolizes the actual attainment of knowledge itself. Hang on. Image. Jean Baudrillard formulated a modern version of this theory in his famous book Simulation and Simulacra, believing that it was consumer capitalism that had brought about this state. However, I think it is something deeper to do with the corruption of truth than what he framed as consumerism is merely a symptom of this. Some of the most striking examples that I can find of this concept tend to be from the Caribbean and Pacific Islands. Famously, after the revolution in Haiti, when the black slaves killed off all the whites, a Spanish traveler who went to Haiti to look at their army discovered that it was composed of thousands of people who called themselves general, usually with one sergeant under him and one soldier under him. This is a clear illustration of the voodoo logic of the transference of sacred power.
Yeah.
In other words, the Haitians, believing that it was the name general that bestowed respect rather than the title itself being an indication of rank and competence. Presumably, in the Haitian mind, the title of general was essentially an excuse to exercise power. Indeed, lapsed societies such as post-revolutionary Haiti relied entirely on warlord power structures rather than any kind of competence. You obeyed people because you directly feared them, not out of a sense of moral obligation or because of reverence to an institution. I see these ideas increasingly common in modern communism, particularly in race communism, as a proxy for what is effectively despotism, where the people do not hold any kind of higher ideal or any respect for institutions, but are merely controlled through the raw use of fear and brute force. It is the fundamental mistake that these people always make, that such a society can hold together without any kind of positive vision. Indeed, it seems that from this point of view, there is literally no such thing as legitimacy. No one obeys the state because they believe in it. No one really believes in a better world. No one believes that the government serves your interests. All that is left is brute force and coercion. Traditionally, such a system of government is known as a tyranny, a word that has fallen out of favor in the modern world because, once again, modernists believe that we have progressed beyond the ancient wisdom of our forebears. However, the definition of the word tyranny or despotism seems to focus mainly on the idea of a ruler having absolute power, not whether that power is exercised justly in a way that would be accepted by a large majority of the people being ruled over. In my opinion, this system of government is a direct result of multiculturalism. When there are competing visions in a society, each competing cultural vision naturally strives for normality and primacy. Society, by definition, can have only one default vision. And this is what the race communists mean when they attack, quote, white supremacy. However, what is left unsaid is that they wish to impose their own brand of supremacy to replace it. Unlike white supremacy based on universalist Christian values, which believes that every life has worth, even if every life may differ in how much it is worth, the communists, much like Judaism, do not believe in universalism. Those who are not part of the chosen group are no longer human, and thus will eventually be destroyed. It is telling that this is exactly the charge that they level at fascism, even though it is an explicit component of communism. Under Marxism, people are divided into the human and the anti-human, and the inhuman must be destroyed in order to make way for the utopia. Coincidentally, those branded as inhuman always happen to be the political enemies of the communists, who are either trying to obstruct their gaining of power or trying to dislodge them once communist power has been gained.
What a
In which case,
coincidence.
yes, in which case they are called reactionary in the sense of being anti-progressive. It is important for you to understand that none of the words, concepts, phrases, or framing that seem to leap out of nowhere in the past 10 years are anything new. In fact, these are very old ideas that are brought out every time the society that they are used upon has forgotten the disastrous results that they bring. Of course, it is in the interests of the communists that no one learns this, and thus, when such a scheme is tried again, it can be claimed that this is a new, progressive thing, that it has never been tried before. And if it has, this time it will be different, because this time we change the client groups being mobilized to progress the revolution. Thus, we are seeing this cargo cultification everywhere in modern society, particularly in areas such as law. Law is no longer about justice. The law has abandoned all pretense of individual justice. Instead, in its place is social justice, a meaningless phrase that merely means the will to power. The law is waved around as though the piece of paper it is written upon confers magic properties, even if no one obeys it. Money is the same. From being a store of the value of labor and assets, it has become a piece of paper that dictates government fiat. Education, too. Gone are the days when education could be measured by such things as tests. Marriage, the relationship between the sexes, the very definition of man and woman, all has been subsumed into the idea that the symbol of the thing, the word that represents it, is much more important than the innate qualities of the thing itself. This reminds me very much of Hegel, who believed in two kinds of science: the science of reason and the science of understanding, which was reckoned to be the lesser science. In other words, it matters far more how an academic thinks that things should work rather than how they actually work. Famously, when Sir Isaac Newton discovered how to split light with a prism, Hegel complained that it could not possibly be true because there was no black as part of the rainbow. Excuse me. This is a very, very important thing to understand about Hegel and to understand about the communists generally. It matters more, the theory matters more than the actuality. This is complete inversion to the way most people think. To most people, the actuality of the thing is more important than the theory of the thing. And this is why, of course, the communists are always anti-science and are pro-science, in quotes, because to them, science is the theory of how things should work, whereas to most people, science is the theory, testing, and experimentation of how things do work. Why is all of this happening? It is because we are transitioning from a high trust to a low trust society. Shorn of social norms under multiculturalism, everything becomes simply about power. The world that the communists envisioned, ironically, the world that the communists envisioned, ironically, is that which they endlessly accuse the fascists of pursuing. And it is exactly that which they desire. What is truth anymore when a man may be a woman, where murder and justice can be interchanged with the flick of the tongue? It is the death of truth. The meaning of words becomes only what you can convince someone else through coercion to mouth, regardless of whether they believe them or not. For the truth is that only the fanatics actually believe the lies that they are forced to speak. But these fanatics, through spying, snitching, and fear, can exercise great influence once they have the coercive power of the state. No one really believes that men can become women. No one really believes that all the races are the same. This is obvious under careful observation. If all the races were the same, why would we need special protections for black people? How would we even be able to tell who they were? This is an exercise in power, and through submission, through the mouthing of absurdities and blatant untruths, you demonstrate either your fealty to the regime, or by resisting, you demonstrate fealty and belief to a truth that is higher than raw power. He who refuses to lie, who refuses to speak absurdities, even under what may be lethal duress, is the most feared opponent of such a system. Such a man cannot be bought. Such a man cannot be cowed. Such a man cannot be coerced. Therefore, such a man must be brought low, must be mocked, ridiculed, beaten, have his beliefs destroyed, his family, livelihood, and person taken from him. After all, not believing in God, The communists believe that this is all that makes a man. Remember, such people do not believe in a soul. They do not believe in the innate nature of man. They believe we are all empty husks. Perhaps the chosen ones contain a spark of the divine, but the vast mass are dross, clay, dirt, and they must be molded into a throne to support the elect who will rule them with an iron fist. This confusion of symbol and actuality is not just confined to the left, however. There are still many who cleave to isms long after the structure they describe has been almost totally destroyed. Those who speak continually of classical liberalism, for example, are just as bad as the cargo cultists who build airfields out of coconuts, expecting to attract the great metal skybird. We no longer have liberalism because we do not have the conditions that made it possible. Ethnically homogeneous, Christian-based high-trust societies. Without that framework, there cannot be classical liberalism. You cannot force people to be liberal. If you try, you wind up like Rousseau, forcing the people to be free, which is simply another tyranny. I sympathize with the classical liberal clique. I really do. I would also love to return to classical liberalism, but a wooden plane will not fly without an engine, even if it bears the outward appearance of a plane, and classical liberalism cannot function without the society that invented it. Indeed, another aspect of cargo cults was the worship of rusting plane wreckages that were seen as imbued with magical power. In political science circles, it is common to reflect upon the words of Plato as echoed by Machiavelli. Plato believed that there were only fundamentally three kinds of societies and that they followed each other in an endless circle. Occultists do love their endless circles and cycles. Machiavelli, in his Cycles of Governments, gave a much more depth to this idea with historical examples. In an effort to illustrate this process, Machiavelli traces the constant rise and fall of the three major forms of government over the course of history. To begin with, Machiavelli explains that as the human population began to increase, groups of people gathered together for the purpose of mutual defense. These early societies chose the strongest and most courageous from amongst themselves to serve as princes. Eventually, this led to the development of monarchical governments or principalities. However, Machiavelli points out that these unrestrained monarchs began to indulge in every kind of luxury, abuse their people, and rule as ruthless despots. In turn, powerful nobles began to conspire against their sovereigns. Under the influence of these nobles, the masses armed themselves against the tyrant, and after having rid themselves of him, submitted to these chiefs as their liberators. In Machiavelli's view, the overthrow of the former monarch gave rise to an aristocratic government headed by the victorious nobles. Having experienced the injustices of despotism, the new ruling aristocracy governed with a reverence for law and concern for the people's welfare. And although this form of government was initially successful, it began to break down within a matter of generations. Machiavelli attributes this degeneration to the complacency and ignorance of the nobles' successors, who, unlike their forebears, had never known the oppression of tyranny. Instead, the new generation of aristocracy embraced ambition, libertinage, and violence. In other words, the aristocracy had devolved into an oligarchic tyranny. Once again, the people overthrew their oppressors and established a new government. As Machiavelli explains, a democratic government based on popular consent was organized in such a way that authority would not again fall into the hands of a prince or a small number of nobles. Like the preceding forms of government, the duration of the democratic government was relatively short-lived. Under this form of government, each individual only consulted his own passions, and 1,000 injustices were daily committed. In turn, the democracy eventually spirals into anarchy. In time, the anarchical state returned to the rule of a prince, which resumed the process of political decline and rebirth once again. As such, Machiavelli claims that all forms of government are inherently defective and destined to perpetual revolution. And I would just like to note here that this cycle never happens in reverse. Democracy does not give rise to aristocracy, which then gives rise to monarchy. Because the only way that a true king can be chosen is out of chaos, when people band together for their collective protection. And one man proves himself to be the peak alpha, I guess would be the modern terminology. He earns respect through his actions and his deeds. It was an attempt to remove themselves from this endless cycle that gave rise to the idea of the Republic, originally detailed by Plato, of taking a portion of each of these systems and trying to make a stable government. But without a true and real vision, no society can last regardless of its structure. Without a sense of purpose, nation, people, and culture, there is no such thing as society. What is the common ideology that bonds the modern West? Wars and gay sex? Endless invasion? Without religion, there can be no society in the real sense, only a set of imposed behavioral codes, and the more people do not follow these codes naturally, the more tyrannical a society becomes. These visions are true and meaningful. They must not just be lip service like the cargo cultists. Simply holding up the crown and saying, "I am king," is not enough. It is not enough to merely mouth the words of virtue. To claim that you care for the people by brutalizing them will not hold up a society. A society functions because the vast majority of people in it hold to an instinctual code of behavior that is ingrained in their race and culture, that is self-regulating. This is a critical concept that modern Western governments seem to have completely forgotten. In the past, most of the people regulated their own behavior. They did not need the government to do it. You absolutely needed the government and the police to prosecute that small minority of people who could not exist inside such norms. But the vast, vast majority of people regulated themselves through the structure of the family, the structure of the church, and cultural groups. As this is lost, the government increasingly trends towards a position where it must regulate and enforce the smallest action of every single citizen, which is the definition of tyranny. And conclusion, everyone with eyes to see observed what happened during COVID, a time when the meaning of words overrode what many people saw with their own eyes. Indeed, if there is a principle that seems to define this period of history, it is don't believe your lying eyes. Do not trust what you feel in your heart. Instead, believe in the power of words. Words whose definition is constantly changing, the definition of which we control. We will still describe this society as liberal, even as we restrict rights and seize property, lock people up for speech, import infinity migrants, etc. The power of these framing devices is so strong that those caught within them can often not see beyond them. They are caught in dichotomies such as left and right, which are two imprecise abstractions that really mean only what the speaker desires them to mean. This modern society confuses the natural moral compass of man, which is buttressed by Christianity, making people disbelieve that man is woman, that light is dark, that tyranny is justice. If you must use an abstract concept as a definition, try and define it more exactly. If you are in an argument with someone, try and get them to define it. You'll often discover that the real definition for many abstractions is things I like versus things I don't like. Of course, there is nothing wrong with saying that you like or dislike things. It is a critical part of the political process. But abstraction makes people believe that their opinions are not based on personal preference. They cannot just say, I do not like this. They might have just done a heckin' hate speech after all. Be precise in your words. Seek not the abstraction of the thing. Look for the real foundational basis of the thing. Do not be fooled by the man who tells you that the wooden plane will fly and that a runway paved with coconut fiber will bring back the giant metal bird. That's it.
Beautifully said. That
Thank
was
you.
good. Let's go to Embiggen View for a minute.
Okay.
The only thing that I want to add to that is the biospiritual difference among civilizational groups, or what you can call a race. The way that we use the word race and ethnicity today, an ethnicity is a piece of a civilization's fabric. So the different ethnic groups in our quilt or our fabric are the different types of white people, different types of Europeans or Caucasians or whatever you want to call it, the royal us together. And I like the term biospiritual, because race and civilization and belief, these metaphysical things are not totally in the realm of science. But the biospiritual conflict is what we see between the powerful structure of international Jewry, the Judaic approach to usury and subversion of governments. We see this with Taqiyya and the silent jihad from international Islam. We see this happening, the removal of churches, the erection of mosques in the UK. I know that my UK bros know that all too well. When you have these different fabrics being laid on top of each other, if you have too many blankets on you, it makes you too hot. That's a very layman's way to put that. But when you have conflicting biospiritual desires, you have strong subsets of people in a single population that want different things reflected back at them from culture. This is why you have a complete misunderstanding by these cargo cultists. They do not have within them the capability or the spiritual impetus to create and envision the things necessary to have planes that come from the sky and bring you industrially created goods. And it is, in my opinion, that difference that makes multiculturalism, or more correctly said, multiracialism, always fail. Is different groups of people from differing fabric networks in large numbers together have diffidence. Experience diffidence and vie for dominance. That's what the problem with multiculturalism is.
Can I just also
please go ahead.
Each group, each biospiritual group or ethno-cultural group or whatever it is that you want to call it, all have very different systems for enforcing normativity, so that people will essentially obey the law without having to be coerced. This is a very, very important point. There are not enough police to police everyone. It cannot be done. This is not how a society works. A society works, as I was saying, by everyone within it having a normative framework that makes them act in a certain way. In the 60s, when they were trying to smash all this down, it was popular to speak of the policeman inside your head. Now, of course, this was seen as a negative thing. And of course, when I was, younger and sort of more degenerate, I was like, oh yeah, man, to have a policeman inside your head. But it is better to have a policeman inside your head than to have a policeman with his boot upon your throat.
Yeah.
It is society needs to regulate itself. You ideally only want government to step in the extreme edge cases. Once you need to continually police more than, I don't know what the magic number is, but let's say more than 2% of your society, things begin to break down. The government and the police are there for the extreme edge cases. Society, a true free society, takes care of itself.
Yeah. Well, I would say a healthy white society. I can't speak about the other racial fabrics of man or the other major religions of the world, Hinduism, Judaism, and Islam. I don't care about them. I don't want them to be part of me. And every time that we see these other major civilizational groups come in large numbers or in small numbers, in one of them's cases, in one case, to dominate our cities, our culture, and our way of life, we all suffer. we become deracinated, broken, frustrated, agitated, and it leads to where we are now. It's very sad. It's very sad. Speaking about the sad parts of where we are now, it's probably a pretty good time to segue into my part of the presentation tonight. Now, before we get to that, I'd like to remind you guys who choose to share your hard-earned dollars with us on this stream. Chris and I here split the proceeds of this stream series 50-50. I have the scrolling banner on the bottom. You can, of course, donate in multiple ways over on Entropy, which is up and running. I will go check to make sure it is still working. It is, thank goodness. You can donate via Cash App, PayPal. You can send rants on Rumble, hyperchats on Odyssey, etc. And at the end of the stream, we will get to those. Normally, I start the first of the stream by saying that, but I had another announcement to get to. So if you would like to kindly donate some dollary dues to Chris and I, you can do so in many ways, and I will read that at the end of the show, and we will both respond to them. So, Chris, before I get started, we're going to stay in enlarged view here, and I would like to preface what I'm going to cover tonight. I want people who listen to this to take something serious away from it that will make their lives better. And I know who listens to this show. I know the different demographics and the intersecting groups of people who listen to our work. And I want to inspire you. And sometimes that requires rattling a cage or making you self-crit, as someone at a university might tell you to do. And so tonight, I want this message that I read to resonate with you. And remember, dog whistles are only heard by the dogs. So if you think I might be talking about you tonight, maybe you should heed what we've talked about on this stream and perhaps analyze the way that you behave and analyze the things that you believe in and why. So I'm going to be covering two things tonight. I'm going to preface this by saying I want everyone who cares about the West and its people to avoid falling prey to two types of modern-day cargo cults that I have personally had to deal with and that I witness in America around me. That's how many people are today about the constructs of the past to which they cling. To illustrate my point, I have prepared two examples on my own side of things, one being pro-American, one being pro-white. What I'm about to say should not be insulting to anyone of intelligence or integrity. So if my portion of the presentation tonight offends you, then I recommend you carefully evaluate why what I have said offended you and ruminate on what Chris and I have shared on this stream, and perhaps re-listen with a calmer, more rational mindset. A common phrase among dissidents today is spiteful mutant. This term is a concise way, an abstraction, like we covered a week or two ago, of conveying the thought of a deracinated man of the modern era who lacks a healthy logos, who is a product of bad genetics and poor parenting, and whose outlook on life is one of childish impetuousness, which drives him to ugly, bad behavior and being a pawn of someone smarter and more powerful. We see this in the NPC meme. These mongrels are almost assuredly associated with the left of politics, and the image that a spiteful mutant conjures in one's mind is, of course, the blue-haired troon or feminist angrily shouting about patriarchy and cisgender dominance in society. But tonight, I want my message to hit closer to home. So I'm going to be using spiteful mutants in our own ranks, on our side of the culture war, to prove a point tonight, which is part of being a right-wing, which is being part of a right-wing cargo cult. It makes you detrimental to the healing of our race, fixing our society, and recapturing biospiritual dominance necessary to generate civilization for our people. All right, I'm going to drop the banner before I go further, and we are going to go to Ensmalled view, Chris, and we'll start with slide 1. Neo-Confederates. I chose Neo-Confederates first because of my lifelong experience with this particular type of ignorant idolatry, which I dub cargo cult patriotism. There are many intelligent men of integrity who understand the America of today is nothing at all like antebellum America, and who also wish to take our country, or at least their state, in a better direction. I am not talking about this man tonight. I am talking about the low IQ, angry, spiteful mutant of the South, and in other states too, who I have often encountered, not just in my home state of Tennessee, but in neighboring states of North Carolina and Virginia. These low IQ mongrels cling to a vague concept of Southern whites being superior to all others. And this man is usually unhealthy, often fat, physically unappealing with bad physiognomy, an unsuccessful mess of a person with few or no friends, other than perhaps a few spiteful mutants he spends time with, and is most assuredly a black sheep of his family. This cargo cult patriot believes that by acting with a false air of superiority, blatantly using racial epithets for non-whites at every given opportunity, and LARPing as a true son of the Confederacy, that through these actions alone and his belief that the South will one day rise again, he will hearken an inevitable period of reconquista by the real sons of American heritage, whatever that means in his beetle little mind. If you love America, and if you're a patriot who is concerned with the well-being of heritage Americans, then this mongrel is a pox to you. He is a hideous boil which must be lanced, drained, and removed from the face of your movement. America was made by bold, dedicated men of strong genetics, cultivated ethics, and driven by a positive vision of love, hope, and redemption. If you seek to restore America or some portion of it to a better state more in line with what the founding fathers wanted, then including cargo cult patriots will only hamper you, as they bring negative vision and values of hatred, animosity, and an unhealthy concept of what an American should mean. I have seen these cargo cult patriots at rallies. I have seen them at meetings outside local churches and such, and I've even attended one with my cousin many years ago. They are a cancer to any positive pro-America movement. They will not help you recapture America. They will not make America great. They will make you worse, and they will get you in trouble if you spend time with them. And now, what many of you might have expected. Let's move to the second slide, Chris. Neo-Nazis. Last and certainly least, I choose neo-Nazis. Since I became racially aware and have delved into the pro-white spheres of activism, politics, and community building the last decade, I have noticed a particular type of spiteful mutant infects every space. And that is what I call the Third Reich romantic, or the Hitler cultist. As I spoke before about the difference among American patriots, there are many intelligent men of integrity who understand the complex history of the early 1900s, the events before, during, and after World War II, and have developed an appreciation for what the Third Reich did for Germans and Germany itself. Many of these men identify as National Socialists and, with good reason, believe that a similar type of action to what the NSDAP accomplished in the 1920s and 30s is necessary today. After all, Weimar problems require Weimar solutions, some would say. Again, I am not talking about this man. I am talking about the low IQ, angry, spiteful mutant who engages in J-spurging, non-white hating behavior, and Nazi LARPing. Much like what the neo-Confederates I've met and dealt with have been like, the neo-Nazi spiteful mutant is often of poor genetics, ironically of mixed race or unknown racial heritage, and driven not by a love for his people or any type of nobility, but by a vengeful hatred for what he perceives to have been stolen from him, from what has been denied him. What's more, the Nazi cargo cultist believes that by pointing out Jewish supremacy in politics, media, and international finance to enough people, that his actions of hatred and violence against others will somehow create what is necessary for white people to have a positive culture again. He believes that by cobbling together a balsa wood Hitler statue and by pantomiming the behavior of a dead and defeated faction 100 years old, that a new Fuhrer will manifest from the ether and bless him with a glorious Fourth Reich. So again, I say, if you love white people, and if you care about securing a future for white children, the 14 words, if you appreciate what the National Socialists did for Germany of the 1900s, then you should not truck with these Hitler cultists. They are a poor example of the white biospirit. They are lightning rods for negative punishing attention from the ruling regime. And perhaps worst of all, they exhibit behavior and genetics not befitting of the noble white man. And 201 would be looked down upon and condemned by the real National Socialists of 1930s Germany. They do not embody the ideal of the Aryan spirit, and they are not noble. They are ignoble curs that will get you in trouble and will lead you to ruin. Let's go back to Embiggen View before I close up, Chris. In closing, I will say this. Do not be a cargo cultist of any kind. We must not waste our time and energy, for both are precious now. We must not waste ourselves building effigies to things that we either don't understand or cannot possibly come back in our lifetimes. We must be intelligent, responsible, and stoic in the face of darkness. We must realize that no amount of worshiping defeated leaders and factions will conjure them back into being. If you want a better future for yourself and your people, you must be a noble, dedicated, positive actor in your community. You must embody the noble Aryan spirit of the men who created a higher culture that we have lost. We must aim at greatness, positivity, love, hope, and generating a positive culture that our people will desire to actively engage in, not merely vengefully, spitefully hating people that have no connection to you and stomping your feet like an angry child. We must not worship false idols of empty hope and broken promises. What do you think about that, Chris?
That was pretty good, man. Yeah. I mean, I haven't really had much involvement with such people. I'm not even sure there are any people like that in the UK, to be perfectly honest. I imagine if they were, they would all be in jail.
Well, they're a noisy rabble element to most of the online communities, and I have seen my fair share of both types that I covered at different types of meetings, outside churches, going to functions and things. And I am a noticer, and I notice the bad physiognomy. I notice the impetuous childishness of action. Now, I know that we have Alex in the chat. Alex, I'm not necessarily talking about you unless you think I am. I've met you in person. I know that you have National Socialist leanings, as do I to a certain degree, but I don't really consider you a low IQ mongrel. You're not this type of person I'm talking about. I'm talking about these people that you see like Blood Tribe. I'm talking about these people that think that just by having a little Hitler shrine in their house and waving a Nazi flag that they're contributing to the movement. Like, these people are just going to weigh you down and be a burden. People that actually organize and do productive things, even if they call themselves National Socialists or they happen to like the swastika, they can still be positive and do positive things, much like Patriotic Alternative in the UK or certain groups that you might be a part of. So when it comes to people like Patriots for America, ones that don't necessarily have a racial bias or a racial focus, like the Old Glory Club or America First, these people often attract people that are of lower IQ or bell curve that want to cargo cult fetishize the Constitution or classic liberalism, those kinds of things. And I also caution them, but Chris covered that. So I wanted to pick ones that I knew might ruffle some feathers of people that follow me that are directly connected to the communities that I'm in, to try to talk some sense into people, make you make better choices about who you allow to be in your movement, because being exclusive and keeping the mouth breathers, the morons, and the cargo cultists out of what you're building will only strengthen what you're building, whether that be National Socialists, whether that be something about American constitutionalism, or whatever else positive you want to try to build for our people. So that was my message for tonight. So, Chris, what would you have to say in response to all of that?
Yeah, I guess I agree. I mean, I just like I was saying in my piece, I think a lot of these historical movements are just wooden planes at this point. I mean, to use the sort of the soy guy pointing meme, right? Like, oh, look at this historical thing. Look at this wooden plane. It's a wooden plane. It's not going to fly. You can get in it and push the little buttons made out of bamboo, but you're not going to get anything out of it. I mean, I think that my personal view on this is that Machiavelli was fundamentally correct, and that even the Republic can decay, especially if it loses its creative vision, the thing that held it together. And given that we have drifted essentially into what he describes as democracy, where everyone is their own king, and cruel acts abound. I think that
just like with everyone being a general in Haiti, if every man is a king, no man is king, and chaos reigns.
Yes, and I know that all the lefties will be like, oh my god, the great man theory of history, but I think it's entirely likely that we will have anarchy first, and then the appearance of some kind of like king afterwards, because as far as I can see from history, this cycle never goes in reverse. And the problem with the republic is that by stacking these three forms of government on top of one another, so you have the king at the top, and then you have the aristocracy, and then you have, a form of democracy in the Congress. If these are not well balanced, and they need to be well balanced through a sort of unifying vision, then one will eventually become dominant. And out of the republic, you will either get a tyranny, an oligarchy, or an anarchy. And then once that happens, the whole cycle repeats itself anew. I don't think you can't have a republic without a unified vision. So yeah, that's my take.
Well then, I believe it is time now to wrap up and move to the us responding to paid chats and that sort of thing, which we do have a few for tonight. And I will be getting Cash App open on my phone to make sure we don't miss anyone over there. All right. Tonight, we'll start with who got here first, which was Alex in the chat. Alex, I'm glad to see you here still. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Excuse me. And wow, we have a lot of people. We're up to 110 live viewers right now, Chris. That's excellent for Thursday night, especially since we took last week off. That's good. We've got 30 some over on Rumble. We've got 8 on Odyssey. We've got 9 over on Entropy, and we almost broke 70 on YouTube. That's excellent. So
wow,
just crested over 100 live viewers again. So thank you to all of you who helped share the streams and get the word out. And it means a lot. Yes, Alex, I do like you, and I think you're a sweet man, and I'm glad that that you're still here with me. So we'll start with Alex's chat tonight. He opens up with a joke. And over on Odyssey, he said, wow, $20. I didn't even notice that earlier. Thank you, Alex. For $20 US. That's a nice super chat, or a nice hyper chat. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that, friend. He opens up with a joke. He says, touch your nose because it's the Jews. Keep up the great work. I love what you're doing here. I hope you had lots of fun at the picnic. Sending love to you and yours. Well, thank you very much, Alex. We had a wonderful picnic, and I even made a little video about it. Because of the horrible weather, only about half the people that were going to come came, but we had like 7 or 8, and we had a wonderful time. It was a good, touching time. It was a good time. So thank you for caring, and thank you so much for sharing your hard-earned dollars with me. I really do appreciate that. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Let's move to Entropy. Cash App is still being weird, so I'm going to try to reload it and reload PayPal while we do the paid chats over on Entropy. And PayPal is always really slow. I don't know why. It's making me do the human challenge again. It makes me do that constantly all the time. So we'll have to just come back to that in a minute. All right. We have 3 things over on Entropy. We will start first with, give me just a second. Let me refresh and make sure I'm not missing anyone. I think it's 3. It is 3. We will start with Arakeen Green Moon, longtime financial supporter. Hello, sir. For $5 US, he says, hello, keep doing the good work. Thank you, man.
Thanks, man.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Next up, we have, another great one. Let's get some salutes and some white hearts in the chat for old Simon JJ here. $25 US. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks, Simon.
A longtime friend of the channel and financial supporter, Simon JJ says, thanks to both of you for all of your hard work with these streams. They are exceptional. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
A
lot of work goes into these.
Yeah. Me and Chris put a lot of hours of work into each one of these. Yeah.
2 days a week. I'm like either writing this script or, doing all the brain work like required. So I'm glad you guys like it. It means a lot. It means so much.
Hashtag it means so much. It really does.
Hashtag it means so much.
Yeah. It really does. It really does. All right. Also, let's see. We have we have Stumbling. Hello again, Stumbling, for $3 US over on Entropy. He says, since all of our sense-making institutions have been ideologically captured, how can we determine what is a cargo cult and what is a helpful belief system, as I believe Christianity to be? Would you like to take this one first, Chris? Or would you like
Yes.
me to say? Okay, go
No,
ahead.
no, no. I look, there is a really look. I thought about this a lot, and then
Me too.
like a lot of stuff, I found solace in the Bible. Um, the good tree, like okay, so I forget where this is from. Okay, how
Mhm.
do you tell the difference between a good tree and a bad tree? A good tree produces good fruit. A bad tree produces bad fruit, right? So
Mhm.
you look at outcomes, right? And
Mhm.
a good way to measure this is long-term stability. So, for example, this is one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of the Orthodox Church because it has been around for a really long time and it produces good fruit. Because the other thing as well is you can always get, into these, oh no, this is a good tree. Oh no, this is a bad tree. Just eat the fruit. It's once you bite into it, it will be very quickly apparent whether the fruit is good or whether the fruit is bad. And I realize this is a sort of consequentialist way of looking at it, but that you kind of need to because when
Mhm.
you're in a like the environment we have now where words are like changing like practically every day and everyone is like lying to everyone else to the point where to many people if you told them, oh, you must speak the truth, they'd be like, what do you mean by the truth, like this kind of thing. Look at the fruit of that tree. If it is good fruit, then the tree is good. If it is bad fruit, then the tree is bad.
Mhm. My answer to your question, stumbling, I'll read it again real quick. How can we determine what is a cargo cult and what is a helpful belief system? Because speaking of fruits, when you look at a cargo cult is people, okay? People doing a cargo cult thing. People that believe just by doing a hollow action or saying hollow words, they can make something that they don't understand or that is impossible to occur. This is my issue that I have with the neo-Confederates and the neo-Nazis that I've butted heads with. They think that they can just drink beer every night, go to a meaningless job, and then grope on the weekend a few times by bombarding chats and saying "har har, it's the Jews" and people in super chats. These people are cargo cult Hitler cultists. They're not doing anything that bears fruit. They believe that these hollow, facile actions will bring about something real. Same way that you can look at one of these cockamamie, blue-haired feminist professors. They talk about we need to get rid of men, we need to disable, or we need to elevate disabled people, we need to do all the bioleninisms. Well, they don't really understand what that's going to do. They don't understand that all of the data show those actions lead to the opposite of everything they say they want. That trunatic is a cargo cultist. So the cargo cult thing is really about knowing what people to avoid, not necessarily their ideas. Because a lot of these cargo cult idiots will repeat true things. They will say true things in a vacuum, or they will talk about relatable abstractions. But associating with people who are cargo cultists is a detriment to you and a detriment to you building a positive life, family, and community. So you should avoid them. Not necessarily the ideas or the ideology they espouse, like I went over about the pro America people and the pro white people. There are valid things, talking points, and ideologies of those camps, but there are also a lot of cancerous retards that will hold your life down or get you in trouble with the government that you should avoid. That's my point with that. So Chris applies the fruit analogy to the tree, meaning the ideology. I apply it to the actual people that you meet.
Oh
If
yeah,
they
no,
have,
but it applies equally to people as well.
well, I
I
just
mean,
took the. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just wanted to add to that question because
oh yeah,
that's the angle
yeah,
that I took was interpersonal, not like academic ideological. Was literally gauging that, using that as your metric to gauge the people you choose to associate with.
yeah. I mean, in terms of institutions, age is also, in my opinion, a good, probably people as well. Actually, I guess if you meet someone older and they're well put together and they've got like a stable life and a
Mhm.
family and stuff like that, right? They have brought forth good fruit, right? If you meet someone who's addicted to drugs and a complete mess and a psycho and has blue hair and
Yeah.
probably probably not a good tree. Not to say that that people can't change because they really can, but yeah, in terms of institutions, I would look for the older things. Anything that has remained stable for centuries, by definition, works. Right, like it's a consequentialist sort of definition, right? Like look at the communists, right? They can't keep a freaking society going for more than 50 years, sometimes even less. That is a dead set indication that their ideas are terrible. Because if they were good, you would be able to point to a communist country that had been around for 200-300 years and be like, look, that works, So, yeah.
All right. We also have over on. We have let me say his name right. Let me look at the chat so I say his name right. Where is it? Kunstler Kenning Krieg. Kunstler Kenneth Krieg. There we go. I wanted to get his name right. Okay. He sends in over on PayPal. He sends in. It's right at $10 US. I don't really know exactly what currency it came in under, but he says for $10 US, take some hard-earned marks. That's right, marks. Take some hard-earned marks. You two are doing great work with this show. Now to sip my Zerbener shops and get comfortable for the show. Well, thank you so much, brother Kunstler Kenneth Krieg. I really do appreciate your support from a beautiful place in the world and from a beautiful people.
Ja, vielen Dank für die 10 Marks, Freunde.
Da.
That's Russian.
That's why I smirked when I said
it. Your German is terrible. Yes, I mean,
I had 3 years of German in school, but that was 30 years ago, and I've had nobody to speak it with. So I'm smart, and I remember a lot of the vocabulary, but that's different from being able to speak it. But I do love the German language. It's awesome. I love German a lot, but I don't speak it very well. I remember some phrases like "gleich um die Ecke," meaning around the corner, and all that stuff. But I've never had a chance to speak it properly, so I didn't really learn it. But let's see. I'm going to refresh the sites because there's one more, and I was saving our biggest one for last. Let me refresh all the sites and make sure we don't miss anybody. Then we're going to bounce and get out of here. Refresh that. Still nothing on Cash App. No Cash App business today, which is fine. And okay, we have one on Subscribestar, but that's for Monday for Discordant Dragons. So we'll get to that Monday. And no, I'm not cheating you out of money, Chris. It's for supporting me to go to Old Glory Club. So it has nothing to do with Empire Flight.
Oh my God. Oh no. I'm going to have to send the inspectors over and inspect your records.
You're gonna report me for being a hate monster to the Scottish police.
All the mongers, all the isms.
I already got Spurgs in the chat saying, "Da is Russian, yes." Dude, I know. That's why I smirked when I said it. It's a joke. I am smart. I make smart jokes. Anyway.
Do you need time to do this thing? Because I got a comment I wouldn't mind addressing.
We'll do the comment, then we'll get to the big paid chat at the end, and we'll wrap up with that. Go ahead. What's the comment?
Sonny Jim made this really interesting comment. He's like, They say you have to break eggs to make an omelet, yet they never produce the omelet. Exactly. They just make a mess, waste all the food, and everyone freaking starves to death. And they're always like, look, but it can be hard to tell. You know what I mean, right? Because the making of the omelet and the scattering of eggs around the kitchen. Also, they both need, they both start with the breaking of the egg. So, tricky. Look at
the evil anti-white Jewish group, the Bolsheviks, right? That destroyed Russia, right?
Yep.
They promised to make all these great omelets, and all they did was stack millions of white Christian bodies a mile high, ruin everything, and then create one of the worst socioeconomic dark ages the Russian people have ever seen. And yet you can point to them over and over again and say, hey, those same people made the Frankfurt School. Those same people push pornography everywhere. Those same people set up all these systems that let them infiltrate and control your government with financial usury and all this stuff. They don't produce the omelet. All they do is break all your eggs.
Yeah. So pretty much. They're like they're like if I don't know, SWAT team broke into your kitchen, and they're like, like just breaking all the eggs, and they're like, thank you, citizen.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna eat? You can eat patriotism or something. I don't know.
Or is the same thing? You can eat your love of your love of the state, comrade.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
what you can
exactly.
eat.
You know,
Yeah.
what need do you have for food, comrade? You know, that's very bourgeoisie of you to require food. Become one of the
Require food, you
proletarians.
bigot.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're over time, so we're gonna wrap up with the nice big paid chat that we got. Holly Midlife is with us again. Before that last chat, Holly says that she loves the message of the show tonight, and she recently left a community due to exactly what we're talking about tonight. Yeah, it's so sometimes you just have to get away from toxic people that produce no fruit or bad fruit. So we do have one big donation tonight, $50. Boom, pow. $50 from Paladin YYZ again. $50 over on Rumble from a rant. When you remove the upper class, the fathers, the intellectual guiding force from society, these guys are the only ones left, meaning the rotten idiots. They are the expression of abandonment. Where are the damn parents? Well, funny you should bring that up, since we were just talking about how all of this rots and decays the very fabric of society. You have to have order, you have to have hierarchy, you have to have what we righteously call patriarchy, not the make-believe abstraction of our enemies. Those things create a necessity of monogamy, a necessity of male responsibility. And when you bulldoze all of that away and you bring in the welfare and the shaming and the sexualizing of children and hypergamy and all of these other things that the anti-whites have brought into being, then you have a lack of real parenting, a lack of families. Go all the way back to the earliest of the anti-white Jewish authors in the 1800s. They gave way to an entire era of attacking the family unit and sexualizing children and cross-sexualizing males and females to behave as the opposite sex. That was their goal from the beginning, because they wanted to turn everything about the order of our civilization on its head. So you can point back to that from the 1800s and the early 1900s, all of these evil anti-white authors, movers and shakers, that's where they started with this. They wanted everybody to be a godless sex freak. They wanted everyone to come from a broken home, because then the people with real power could use you as a pawn however they saw fit, and you had no resistance to it.
To be fair, is not everyone, right? They
well,
did not.
Not everyone.
They did not follow their own prescription. This is a prescription for you, not for them. But yes, we might actually cover this, because some of these early writings by people like Magnus Hirschfeld.
Yeah, we're definitely going to cover.
Are just amazing. I mean, you look at this stuff, and it could have literally been written by some blue-haired, crazy journalist in
some wackadoo today.
There's nothing really new under the sun. You know what I mean, right? The battle for societal integrity.
There's nothing new under the hammer and sickle.
Yeah, this battle for societal integrity and the forces working against it is basically endless. And you're right. Yes, everyone needs a father to smack them around the head when they're being an idiot, and to
especially young men. Men need to be tested from stronger, better men. That's how they test themselves. That's how they improve and learn what masculinity is and should be. But anyway, that's a topic for a different time. We have more planned for you guys. Definitely Monday night. You can catch us both on Discord at Dragons. We'll be back. And of course, a week from tonight, more Empire of Lies. And I bid you all a great weekend. Just love yourself, love your people, be wise and intelligent with the application of your time and energy. And we will get to that beautiful Western sunrise together, friends. Good night, everybody. God bless.
And if I might just say, use discernment. People try and examine and discern the true nature of things. It's not easy, but once you start getting into the habit, it's like a thing. You sort of like a muscle. You've got to start exercising. Check it out. It's pretty cool. And thank you so much, everyone who donated and everyone who was watching. We really appreciate it. It means so much.
Absolutely. Good night, everyone. I'll see you next week.